Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Monday night nonfiction book club. So glad you could join us. We are still working on, we've got 3 chapters left after tonight. So we'll try to get all of those. Maybe we'll get 2. I'm going to try to get all 3 of them next week. We're working on Surviving the Coming War, a guide for wartime survival for civilians by James C. Jones. And he is the originator, co-founder of Live Free USA. That is part of the AmericanSurvivor.org network. Thank you, Scott. You're reading my mind. I love it. Absolutely. Thank you, sir. I have had some problems in the past getting through, making sure that we had good audio and good video. And Scott just let me know in the chat that I'm coming across both visually as well as orally and receiving it fairly well. So thank you so much for that. Oh, Bouger Prepper, let me get over here. Let's change you. You can't just be a normal person. We got to turn you into a moderator. So add as moderator, standard moderator, save. Okay, Bouger, you should now have a wrench and your name should be in blue when it shows up. So hopefully you'll see that. I believe Patty's Garden was the first one here this evening. Patty, welcome. Thank you for being here. She and Scott Hummer have been challenging each other for which one's going to be first. Patty was first this evening, Scott's second. Utah Mike, good evening. Good to see you as well. So Scott, didn't mean to run over saying thank you for being here. I always appreciate seeing you. Let me see. And then I think I saw Little Lone Prepper as well. Yes. And then we've got Bouger Prepper, Utah Mike. Sue Me, good evening. Always pleasant to see you. Sue Me and I have been chatting an awful lot recently about freeze-dried and dehydrated foods, and she has some wonderful ideas that I hope that someday she will get on here and share with us. So just really excited about some of the things that she's got going on up there north of the border, and that's our northern border, not north of the southern border. Oh, by the way, it was down to 35 this morning. So Friday, it was 92, and then yesterday or this morning, it was 35. So we've got about a 60-degree temperature change in about 72 hours. That was something else. We're supposed to get back up into the high 80s by the end of this week. So what a change, huh? I turned on, I got up this morning about 3 o'clock and switched over from air conditioning to heating. And we're at heating right now. We've got the house set for 73 degrees, and hopefully that'll last here for a while. Of course, it was 60 degrees outside temperature, and we were driving over to, I went to the optometrist today and to get new glasses. And so 60 degrees external temperature, and we're driving with the air conditioner on in the car. So Helen and I have different temperature requirements. Let's put it that way. So she likes it a little bit cooler than I do. I mean, and 60 degrees is a good summer day in Germany. People go skinny dipping in Germany once it gets to about 70 degrees. So let me see who else here. Katzen Prepping, good evening. Welcome to Good to See You. Butch Graves, thank you, sir. Anybody else? Okay, I think that's it for right now. Let's get into this book. I've got to use some code words because some of the words that we would typically use, and I don't mean to cover up Mr. Jones's name. Wonderful work, wonderful work. This is a mandatory add to your prepper library, and just a great book. Lots of great information. You can always supplement it with other books. No book is a standalone, but this is as close as you're going to find. That every book can be augmented with other books, and like we talked about last week, there's just so much information out there, and you guys have an advantage over where I was when I first started this 60 some odd years ago, when I was about 12 years. No, let me see, it was 62, October 62, so I was 10. 63 years ago when I started out doing this, the amount of information was not the same as it is now. We also did not have the advantage of social media, whether that be Facebook and such fantastic channels as preparing for long-term survival, or the fantastic YouTube channels that we have. Salt Creek Living with our friend John Grammer. By the way, we're going to do his. We aren't going to do a fiction book this month because the last Thursday happens to be Thanksgiving. But we will work on his volume 4 of his series for a post-apocalyptic world. Did I see Triple G sneak in here? Pete, did you get in here? Welcome. Good to see you. I was working on our group. Yeah, there he is. All right. I was working on our group's laws and or bylaws and rules and everything else and code words and stuff. And I said, gosh, what would be a good code word for Pete and his wife and his location? And God, so I worked diligently to get you included in that. So I just want you to be aware of that. Thank you for being here. I know you spend an awful lot of time on the road, and it's your time with your family is precious. So thank you for sharing that time with us here this evening. Shenanigans, great to see you. Thank you for joining us. Looks like all the great crowd is here. All my favorite people. Don't tell other people, but you are my favorite people. Thank you for your support. Let's talk about chapter 26, Armed Combat in a War Zone. I would like to read to you basically a third of a paragraph. And this is a fairly long paragraph, so it's going to be a fairly long quotation I'm going to give you. But I think this is indicative of the depth to which Mr. Jones has written this chapter. And if I can get my glasses so I can read this, the doctor recommended today I get bifocals, one for reading far distance or looking far distance, like reading the hymn numbers in the front of the church. I have to wear glasses to do that. But then again, to read the missal, it's difficult to read distance and near at the same time. These are reading glasses. So right now the screen is blurry. I can't read any of the comments on the screen. I can only read from my book. So the optometrist today said you need bifocals or trifocals and progressive lenses. So I said, yeah, that's what I had before my cataract surgery. So, after the cataracts, I had 20/20 vision for about 10 years. But now I need to wear glasses again. Okay. So this is on page 200. America's founders were aware of the importance of an armed civilian population. The much misrepresented Second Amendment says nothing about the rights to go hunting. It says nothing about the right to self-defense. It specifically refers to a well-regulated militia, so it is specifically intended to protect ownership of military-type weapons. Remember that the hunting weapon was the military weapon of those days. Remember that 2 revolutions were fought over trying to take a cannon away from the civilian population. Of course, the United States Revolutionary War started at the Battle of Lexington Concord, and that's because the regular troops, the regular army of Great Britain, was trying to seize a cannon that was held by the militia. And they didn't want to do that, so that was the shot that was heard around the world. And then same thing. The Texicans, as they were called back in 1820s, 1830s, had a cannon, and I've seen the actual cannon. And if that cannon is that big around as far as a barrel, I would be totally surprised. Matter of fact, I have a picture of it here, of me standing with it. Let me see if I can find it here, and maybe we can show it to you. But anyhow, and that was the Texas Revolution against Mexico was initiated because they wanted to seize that cannon. It was interpreted that it was the rights of the people to have a military-style weapon because that was their hunting weapon as well. Now, I'm not going to find it here real quickly. Wish there was a way that I could index these to find things that I'm looking for very quickly. But we just went down to Gonzales here with a senior trip a short while ago, and I actually stood with the cannon, and Helen took my picture with it. Oh, there we go. There it is. Okay, so here is the actual me standing right with the actual cannon from 1835. So it's not a big cannon at all. That's not something. So when they say, seizing a cannon, if you take a look, that cannon isn't even the size of my chest, and the diameter of the barrel is less than the diameter of a Coke bottle. So, what we call a cannon from 1835 and what we call a cannon today are two totally different things. I think that's one of the biggest problems we have, whether it be interpreting the Bible, whether it be interpreting the Constitution, whether a lot of different things. We don't put things into context of how they were written. Okay. For example, I taught the class. A question was asked in OCIA on Sunday, and it said, we don't understand why there's confession. Why can't we just confess directly to God? And I told the class, I said, you have to understand, you have to go back to the mindset of the apostles and Jesus went back in 33 AD, okay? And you have to remember, Jesus was a Jew. All of the apostles were Jews. So how did the Jews atone for sins? They took an unblemished lamb. They took doves. They took something and they offered it to the priest at the temple for him to offer as a sacrifice on the altar, a blood offering. Well, they didn't just walk up and hand the lamb to the priest, right? And then walk away. They had to tell him, I am offering this I am offering this sacrifice for the sin of. And that's in Leviticus 5:5 and Leviticus 5:6. So if you read those two, you find out that the Jewish tradition, of which Jesus and the apostles were, was that when you atoned for your sins, you had to confess that sin to a priest. And so, you have to take things in context. The same thing, when we interpret the Constitution, we have to put it in the context of what were they talking about back in 1776. Not what are we talking about in 2025, what were they talking about in 1776? So words have meanings back then that have changed in the current world. One of them, of course, is what is a weapon? What is a firearm? They left that very, very undefined in a very, very non-specific way. They just said the right to bear arms. So that means tomahawks, knives, muskets, anything that was at that time. And then the next part, and we'll read that here, it also specifically refers to a well-regulated militia, so it is specifically intended to protect ownership of military-type weapons. It is important to note that the term regulated, as used in the 18th century, meant well-trained or organized instead of the way we interpret it today, which is controlled by laws. The generic term arms is used rather than the more specific terms like musket, flintlock, because it was assumed that weapons would improve their technology and evolve over time. So that what was a musket in 1776 is an AR-15 in 2025. So we have to put all that into context. And I think Mr. Jones does a very, very good job of putting this all into context for us, of reminding us that in 1776, they did not write the Second Amendment in 2025 language, okay? They had no way of knowing what 2025 language would be. We have to interpret it in the way that they intended, not in the way that we want, okay? Or our current fad, whatever that might be. So, Theoxorus, good evening. Welcome. Little Lone Prepper, good to see you as well. Yeah, it's been cold. Last night's video live with Kaylin Strain, she did a Canadian menu that looked oh so good. Garlic lemon chicken, I think it was. And so I immediately went and said, can I find garlic lemon chicken anywhere on the web? Because that looks so good. And I think she did a good time. It was garlic lemon chicken, and they had apples, kind of like Cracker Barrel fried apples. That's what they looked like. I don't know if they tasted that way, Kaylin, but sure looked that way. And then tortillas. It looked like a really good dinner. I wouldn't mind having one of those. Nicholas Campbell, good evening. Welcome. Good to see you, my friend. Kane Corso, good evening. There's a World War II tank sitting on the county courthouse where I'm at, according to King Corso. Yes, they are quite common. And so the question becomes one, when we entered World War II, we had the M2 and the M3. So the M2 was the Stuart light tank, and it only had like a 25 millimeter cannon. Then we had the M3, we called it the Grant, and the British modified it and called it the Lee. So we had a 75 millimeter gun that went out the front, but it fired to the front and then off to the right, up to 50 degrees to the right. So it was kind of forward and a little bit to the right. Couldn't go to the left. You had to turn the entire tank. Then on top it had a turret with a 37 millimeter gun on it. And then on top of that, it had another turret with a 50 caliber. So that was an improvement. Then we went to the M4 Sherman, which was our main battle tank during World War II. It wasn't the best tank in World War II, by far. It had a 75 millimeter gun, but it was, because we mass produced it, just as the Soviet T-34. The Panzer IV, the Panzer V, better known as the Panther, the Tiger I, and the Tiger II, better known as the King Tiger, Königstiger, were far superior as far as design to anything the Soviets put out or anything the United States put out. We overwhelmed them with mass production like you would not believe. That's how we won the war. Then we went to the M10 tank destroyer, and so it depends on where we were in as far as technology. Technology evolved very rapidly in World War II over tanks, and then of course we had the M48 Pershing that we used primarily in Korea. Then from the M48 Pershing up into the beginning of the Vietnam conflict, and then we went to the M60, and then from the M60 we went to the M1. So, and that is our current main battle tank, is the M1 Abrams. We started the M1 Abrams series, the M1A1, with a 105 millimeter rifled barrel, and now with the M1A1E1, we have a 120 millimeter smoothbore gun. So it has a higher velocity. We put a sabot round in there, which is kind of like how do I describe this? Kind of like a shotgun shell with a miniature bullet inside of the shotgun shell. So it goes out the tube with that hyper velocity. Then once it's got that weight and kinetic energy, then the outside shell falls off, and you have this penetrator that's going at this high velocity that we could not achieve with a narrower diameter gun. Oh man, it's just something else. Okay, so preparing to fight and to survive. He's got a couple points here that I think are fantastic. Acquire the best weapon for your personal situation and potential combat scenarios. He talks about just one gun. One of the most popular rifles in the West, going up through 1900, I'm going to say, was a 22 caliber rimfire. And then right after that was probably the Winchester 30-30. Of course, the Army was using what was called the 45-70, which would knock your shoulder off. It was a really big kicker of a rifle, but that was the primary Western rifle. It was also considered an elephant gun, along with the 50 a buffalo gun, along with the 50 caliber. So those two were the primary. 45 caliber and 50 caliber were two primary buffalo guns. So he says, 22, yeah, you can do it, but it's not going to be as versatile as you would like. It's not going to be as good of a, if you have to be put into a combat situation, it's probably not going to meet your needs. Doesn't have the penetrating capability. Remember that it was a 22 that was used against President Reagan and his press secretary. Both of them survived, even despite multiple gunshots. And so, it's just not what you would consider a primary defensive weapon. He says that if you're going to have that, make sure you have a good sidearm. And he recommends either a 45 caliber or a 40 caliber or 9 millimeter. And he says 9 millimeter Luger in the book. I just want to make sure you understand terminology. So the 9 millimeter Luger was created by the Germans in World War I. and that became a very, very common pistol round. So the Luger round itself was later renamed to parabellum, which is Latin for war. So the 9mm Luger and the 9mm parabellum are the exact same round, and 9mm parabellum is what's used in the famous Glock 19. I don't have a Glock 19. I have others in the 9mm. My concealed carry is a Smith & Wesson M&P Shield. Then I have a Ruger Security 9. I like Ruger. The Ruger's just made some really good stuff. For 45 caliber, I have a Glock 21, and I wear it cross draw. Then I also have a 40 caliber. Not that big a fan of the 40 caliber. Now, a friend of mine, Steve Smith, he's the author of the Stonemont series. He's a retired police officer, and he swears by 40 caliber. I mean, he thinks it's great, and so he convinced me to get a 40 caliber. I've got a 40 caliber. I'm not as impressed with it. I would much rather have either a 45 or a 9mm. To tell you the truth, if I could, I love my 357 Magnum. I have a Ruger Security 6 357 Magnum, and I gave it to Helen because after her car wreck, she still has an unhealed break right here, right where the bone joins at the elbow. And so what happened was she was T-boned on the side, and so that when the initial hit drove her this way, so her right hip went into the connector for the seatbelt and broke her pelvis. Then, of course, you have an opposite and equal reaction, so she went this way. Her arm was up, so her arm went through the window, as did her head, and it broke her arm in 3 places. She had a severe brain concussion and skull fracture. Then the seatbelt almost amputated her left breast. It cut through her bicep, so that 2/3 of her bicep was severed. So she can't, that bicep is still not healed. Her elbow is still not healed. So she can't take a semi-automatic weapon, hold onto the slide, and rack it. Okay, it's just physically impossible for her. So she has my Ruger 357. The nice thing about a 357 is you can use 38 special rounds in it, which are not quite as powerful as a 357. So getting her a revolver is perfect because of her medical condition. So, it's just one of those things you have to take into consideration. What's going to be best for somebody? Now, you can get a speed loader for any revolver. So a speed loader is nothing more than a round device. You put 6 rounds of ammunition into it. When you flip your revolver open, this sits perfectly into that the 6 empty spaces. You push a little silver button on the end, and it discharges those 6 rounds into your weapon. You close the revolver, and bang, you're back in action. It only takes you maybe 2 seconds to load another 6 rounds. It's faster than loading a magazine, in my opinion. But so those are some of the things that he wants you to take into consideration. And he also recommends that the most versatile, well-rounded weapon that you can have to carry is probably going to be a shotgun. And so he recommends, spending $400 or $500. He likes the Kel-Tec KSG 12 gauge. I have 2, what I'm going to call combat shotguns, and then a very long barrel Remington 870. So I have a long barrel Remington 870 for hunting dove and birds and stuff like that. Then I have 2 short barrels. I have a Remington 870 short barrel, 12 gauge, and then I have a Marlin 500. No, not Marlin. I'm going to forget here. But it's 500. Somebody out here is going to know what I'm talking about, and they're going to help me with it. In 20 gauge. So I have one of each. Utah Mike has 22 long rifle revolvers. Mossberg, thank you, Utah Mike. I told you somebody out there would help me out. Isn't that great? You guys are so great. Yeah, Mossberg 500 in 20 gauge. So they are so close. I mean, in operation, in everything, those 2 weapons are fantastic. So that's what he recommends. He recommends having a 12 gauge and shotgun. He likes the Keltec. I will tell you, in my opinion, Mossberg 500, Remington 870, two of the finest shotguns out there. I think for the money, they are just phenomenal. Yes, pump action shenanigans. Yeah. So the Remington 1100 is a semi-automatic. The 870 is pump. The Mossberg 500 is pump. So yes, absolutely. I think that they are just phenomenal. Cane Corso has a fantastic suggestion. Make sure that you get a double action revolver. Absolutely. So what we're talking about with a double action revolver is that means that when you pull it out, you don't have to cock it. So a single action, you have to manually cock it. Then you only have one option to pull the trigger, right? You have to cock it manually and pull the trigger. So that's a single action. With a double action revolver, what that means is when you pull the trigger, it automatically pulls the hammer back for you. And then when you pull it all the way back, it releases that hammer. So it's pulling the hammer back and releasing it, double action. Whereas a single action, it only releases the hammer. You have to physically, manually pull the hammer back. Okay, so that's what Cane Corso is talking about with a double action revolver. And I think that's double action revolvers are also very, very simple to maintain. They have a far lower chance of a mechanical failure than does a semi-automatic. So, I would probably say have a revolver or two in your arsenal and make sure you have them. Now, I wanted to dispel a myth. It's not mentioned in the book, but it is a myth that I think a lot of people have that we just kind of have to discuss real quickly, and that is a shotgun is not a blunderbuss, okay? A lot of people have the perception that a shotgun is a spray weapon. You aim it in a general direction, and the shot pattern is so large that all you have to do is aim in the general direction. You're going to hit them some pellets. Not true. There, you can, depending upon the choke, and when you get the shorter barrel combat weapons, you're going to have a full open choke. So a choke means that it's concentrating the fire or the pellets as they go down the barrel. It concentrates them into a small cone. Okay. Typically at 25 yards, your maximum spread on a 12 gauge is going to be about 12 inches. Okay. So it's not the spray and pray type weapon that a lot of people have in their minds. You do have to aim it, and you have to be very good at your aim. That's the reason why there's skeet and trap events, and otherwise, if you were shooting into a flock of dove, you could catch your daily limit with two pulls of the trigger. Doesn't happen. Stock up on, and he recommends both ammunition and extra parts. Absolutely. If you have an AR-15, there are some parts that are going to wear out. Get extra springs, get extra clips. I'm going to say get an extra ejector, get an extra extractor. So there are certain parts in that you want to have extras of. Now, you can do it a couple ways. Most stores that Army Navy surplus stores will have spare parts kits, especially for AR-15 platform, because it is so interchangeable with the M16 and the M4. So you can get really good quality spare parts kits from Army Navy stores, surplus stores. They're going to be a little bit on the expensive side, but they're great to have. I would say pick up one or two. Springs, extractor, ejector are critical, and pins. And then, of course, have extra ammunition. I want to warn you, make sure you find out and don't exceed ammunition capacity in excess of what your insurance company would consider hazardous, okay? Let's say that your insurance company says, if you have more than 500 rounds of ammunition stored in your house, and your house catches on fire and they explode, we are going to reject your insurance payment because you added to the danger of the fire by having explosives inside your house. They can do that. So do not exceed the storage capacity of what your insurance company says is hazardous. Same thing with storing flammables, whether that be fuel for your heaters, for your generator, or anything like that. Just be cautious. Think of a way where you can store those away from your insured dwelling so that you are not in violation with what your insurance company considers to would nullify your insurance claim. Okay. Number 3, practice safety and security procedures for firearms of all kinds. I'm going to go through the bullet list that he has. Fantastic list. Just great ideas. Always treat every firearm as if it's loaded, regardless of how sure you are that it isn't. There was a gun show I want to say it was in Cedar Park. It might have been in Leander. But I went there on Saturday. On Sunday, some guy went and bought a weapon, went back, was sitting examining it on the tailgate of his truck, and somehow or other there was a round in the chamber, and he shot and killed his father. Boy, don't you know that's going to cause some emotional trauma. But because he wasn't handling the weapon as if it was loaded. Always handle it as if it was loaded. In the Army, the first thing you're taught when you go to the firing range is up and down range. So that's easy to remember. Your firearm is always pointed up and then down range towards the targets. It never goes any other direction other than towards the targets. Never point a firearm at anyone unless you intend to shoot. Always know who or what your target is before you shoot. There was when we first moved to Houston back in 1991, there was a case where a husband and his wife went out to dinner, and the daughter was away for college. She got home a little bit early. She decided she would surprise them. So she hid in the closet. They came home from their having been out for the evening, were walking in their home. All of a sudden, the closet door opens up, scares the living daylights out of him, pulls his pistol and shoots and kills his daughter. Don't you know he has some emotional trauma? So he wasn't sure of what he was shooting at. He was reacting. Know what your target is before you pull the trigger. Always, okay? Let me see. Be aware of your backup, okay? That is, before you shoot, know who or what lies behind what you're shooting at in case you miss. Will your bullets be stopped or go through a wall, or will it strike somebody else inadvertently? This is the reason why for the first month or two, I will not hunt, period. There's going to be all kinds of people out there hunting who have never hunted before, don't know what their backdrop is, don't know the range of their weapon, don't know how to hit, don't know how to hit their target, and they're just going to be shooting willy-nilly. I'm not even sure if my brick walls in this house are going to be able to sustain the damage from some of those hunters who don't know what they're doing. And, oh, by the way, Salt Creek Living, our friend John Grammer, I just watched some fantastic stuff. He's gone into how to process a carcass in the field, how to get it home, how to quarter it. He showed us how to process it to get it ready for a meat grinder if you want to make any kind of sausage. Salt Creek Living, and look for, I think it's called deer processing. But he goes through exactly each major piece and how to cut it, how to carve it, how to get the major pieces of meat off each one. So if you have not done any hunting, do me a favor, watch John Grammer's videos. He and his wife, Terry, do a fantastic job of teaching you an awful lot of homesteading skills. Okay, next one, store your weapons and ammunition separately when they're not needed. There's only one loaded weapon in our house, and that's the one I use for my concealed carry weapon. It goes to the bedside when I go to bed. But other than that, all the ammunition is in one room. My weapons are in a different room. So they are not stored even in the same room in the house. Use extra care for safety and where the firearm is pointed when climbing or negotiating obstacles. So one of the things, originally, when the first couple times I went hunting, I used a shotgun, and it was actually a single barrel break action. So it broke, and the chamber came up, and then you put a manual in. So what we would do when we were walking, we had it broken open so that it showed that there was no way that the hammer could come in contact with the primer on the shell in order to fire. And we would carry it in the crook of our arm so that the weapon was here, and then the barrel fell down in front. If we had to cross a fence, climb a wall, or anything else, we would then put the shotgun over our shoulder with the stock coming down in front. It's still broken open, and the chamber would be up here, and the barrel would be pointing down behind us. Those are some of the safety things you want to make sure you're doing when you're walking and climbing. I would say never, ever climb over a fence, never, ever climb a rock wall, never, ever try to climb up a mountain with slippery terrain with a loaded weapon. They're so easy to load rapidly. Now, if you're in a combat situation, that's a different thing. Hunting situation, there's no reason for you to have a loaded weapon while you're doing that kind of dangerous walking. Let's see. Is there LC or LCP brand on the Ruger? Well, I don't know the answer to that either. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. So you're looking at the pistols, basically. Gotcha. Make sure you're using the proper ammunition for the weapon you have. Know that you can, not safely, you can interchange 38, 357 millimeter. Okay. If you put a 9mm into a 357 or a 38, be aware of the fact that that the rim at the base where the primer is totally different from the other two. So they have different. The 357 and 38 have a little bit of a wider base, so that it doesn't go into the chamber that well. Whereas the 9mm has a groove around instead of a protracted base, so that they're chambered a little bit different. If you put a 9mm into a 357 or 38 special, chances are you may not be able to extract it once you shoot it. Just be aware of that. Now, there are a couple that are, quote, interchangeable, and they're the opposite, okay? So .223 caliber is roughly, I'm going to say within enough to where we can say they're kind of interchangeable with 5.56 millimeter, okay? Now, a 5.5, and look on the barrel, it will tell you what it's chambered for, okay? It's chambered for 5.56 millimeter. It's chambered for 223 caliber, .223 caliber. .223 caliber is the lower pressure chamber of the two. So a 5.56 millimeter has a greater blast pressure when you shoot it than does a 223. It is safe to put a 223 round into a 5.56 millimeter chambered weapon. It is not that safe. You can do it once or twice, but then over time, you're risking the chance of blowing that chamber if you continue to fire 5.56 in a .223 chambered weapon, okay? So remember, 223 into 5.56, so civilian into military, okay. Military into civilian, no way, okay? Now, it's the opposite for 7.62 millimeter, .308 caliber. So 7.62 millimeter military does not have the same chamber pressure as does a .308 caliber. So the 308 caliber, the civilian, is a higher chamber. So you can put the military into the civilian 308, but I would not put the .308 into a 7.62 millimeter, okay? So they're the opposite. So just remember those four: 223, 5.56, and then 308, 7.62. Make sure you keep your muzzle free of dirt and obstructions. You know, in the military, they made us clean our weapons twice a day, it seemed like. And they wanted it oiled and cleaned and everything else. Modern gunpowder. Modern gunpowder is so fantastic. you really don't have to clean it every time you shoot your gun. Okay, you can go a couple days without cleaning it. Make sure you have a good cleaning kit. Make sure you know how to clean it. You know, and I would say make sure you have plenty of patches, plenty of oil, plenty of solvent for SHTF. If I was going to be concerned about having extras, before I would worry about a whole bunch of ammunition, I would worry about, number one, do I have enough magazines? I like having 5 magazines for each pistol and 8 magazines for each rifle. Okay. And then the next after that is I want to make sure I have plenty of patches so that I can clean the barrel, the inside of the barrel, as well as lubricate the inside of the barrel. I want to make sure I have the replacement parts that I told you about, the springs, the pins, the extractors, the ejectors, and then I want to make sure that I have all the maintenance and cleaning parts that are necessary for those weapons. Okay, so magazines, cleaning, and maintenance are going to be far more critical to me than having a couple thousand rounds of ammunition. Now you can get a kit to reload your own ammunition for around $50. I mean, it's going to be slow. You're going to do one round at a time. You probably do one round every 5-10 minutes, but you can do your own reloading. I have a kit. I don't have a whole bunch of powder or anything like that. I don't have bullets or anything. I do have extra brass, but I probably need to stock up on that. I've been spending my money on the actual ammunition rather than and training and at the range than on reloading stuff. Talks about your sight picture. Really good job talking about sight picture and stance and posture and holding the weapon. Talks about brass, which is basically breathe, relax, aim, slack, squeeze, which is a process of actually pulling the trigger. One of the other things, he doesn't mention it here, but one of the things I want to emphasize to you is make sure that when you have your trigger, that you've got your trigger finger and you're using it correctly. A lot of people try to get it out here on the tip. That causes you to jerk, okay? If you get it too close to this knuckle, then you're going to pull in, and when you pull in, it's going to cause your hand to move your sight alignment on that pistol as you're aiming. The same thing with the rifle. What you want to go is you want to go with the fatty tissue of your pointer finger, okay? So it's in between the knuckle and the tip of the finger, and that's where you're going to get the best consistent draw without trying to pull that weapon off alignment as you're pulling the trigger. A lot of people have a tendency to jerk the trigger as well. Don't. Just a slow, steady pull, and it will hit its release point and it'll automatically go. So, just be aware of that. Oh, an AR-10. I'd love to have an AR-10. So the AR-10, which is great. Typically, an AR-10 is going to be stamped for 7.6251. But if yours is stamped for both 308 and 7.6251, phenomenal, fantastic. You're far ahead of the rest Cane Corso because that's just superior. I know that Triple G Farms has a weapon I just absolutely admire. But anyhow, one of these days, Pete, we're going to get together. We're going to go to the range. We'll shoot. Now, shooting at a static target is totally different from shooting at a human being. There's an organization called Heroes Night Out. I was on the board of directors for it. I was also the chaplain. I helped an awful lot of people who came back from the war who were extremely traumatized by the fact that they pulled the trigger and it caused another human being, even though it was the enemy, their life. That is a very, very difficult, traumatic thing. And for those of you who think there's going to be any glamour in combat, whether 1-on-1 or 1 versus 100, pulling the trigger on somebody is something that is abnormal. It is not something that the human mind was, the normal human mind was designed to do. That is something that it's going to cause you nightmares. It's going to cause you to have questions about a lot of different things, about forgiveness. Just for the typical human being, especially the soldiers, some of the greatest trauma that we have is not about what happened to them, but what they did to others, and that the guilt that's associated with that. So I just want to make you aware of the fact that pulling a trigger on another human being is abnormal. Now, because of that abnormality, I want you to also be aware of this. Because it is so abnormal, you're going to hesitate. And when you hesitate, it can cost you your life. So make sure that you are prepared to do what you need to do, and make sure you're prepared emotionally, physically, psychologically, as well as spiritually to do what you've got to do. He talks about plan and practice for combat scenarios, clearing rooms, all kinds of different maneuvers, which kind of leads us into chapter 27 that we can get through very quickly. It's basically military skills for civilians. So he talks an awful lot about squad operations. So let me just get into, I'm going to kind of, he talks about counter ambush techniques, field fortifications, how to build pits, protect yourself from rolling hand grenades and all different kinds of stuff. Just really, really good information. But I want to talk to you just a little bit about some critical things. Let me get my page marked here so I know where to go back to read. Okay. So next week is wartime survival gear and supplies. And then, so it's going to be bug out bags and things like that. Then chapter 29 is 10 principles of wartime survival. And then and that's only 4 pages. And then chapter 30 is post-World War III adaptation and recovery. So that we should be able to do all 3 of those in 1 week. So we'll try to finish the book next week. I should have another book available for you that we will do as a follow-on. I will tell you right now, I don't think I have it here. I think I left it in the bedroom where I was reading it. I am reading a couple books. I can't even think of the name of it now. But it's a fantastic book on nuclear warfare. Oh my gosh. And it's very realistic. It puts Annie Jacobson's book to shame. But it's just a phenomenal book. But anyhow, I'll have that for you next week, which one we're going to do following this book. So let's talk about this chapter on civilians in a wartime movement. And basically what he's talking about is squad movement. So in the military, both the Army and in the Marine Corps, we pretty much are the same in a lot of things. The smallest fighting unit is called a team, a fire team. So a fire team can be anywhere from 4 to 6 individuals, usually headed by a buck sergeant or a corporal. So 2 teams come together and form a squad, and that's going to usually be somewhere in the vicinity of 10 to 12 soldiers or Marines, okay? And that's headed usually by a staff sergeant. So you're going to have a staff sergeant as a squad leader, 2 sergeants as team leaders, and then you've got various privates and corporals underneath them. Then you're going to have 4 squads. So you've got the 4 staff sergeants report to a platoon sergeant, a sergeant first class in the Army, a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps. And so that's 3 stripes above, 2 rockers underneath. That's what I was when I became an officer. So you're going to be in charge of about 45 different soldiers in that case, because you're going to have, in addition to your 40, I'm going to use a standard 10-man squad. So you got 40 there, plus yourself, plus the lieutenant, plus a radio telephone operator, and maybe 1 or 2 other people. So that's a typical platoon. So everything's going to be 4s from here on. So there are going to be 4 platoons to a company, okay? And then there's going to be 4 companies to a battalion. And then there's 3 battalions to a regiment, 3 battalions to a brigade and 4 battalions to a regiment. But because of the way that they're organized, regiment is always fixed. So regiments have gone away pretty much in the Army. They're there for honorifics only. And what happens is you've got a brigade. So brigades can mix and match. For example, 1st Brigade, 1st Infantry Division, when I was there, had 3rd Battalion, 63rd Regiment Armor, had 1st to the 18th Infantry, 1st Battalion, 18th Infantry Regiment, and 2nd to the 27th Infantry Regiment. 2nd Battalion, 27th Infantry Regiment was the 3rd Infantry Battalion, and then it had an artillery battery. So, I mean, a battery in artillery or air defense is the same as a company in armor, tanks, and maneuver troops. Now, the other one, third one that you're going to hear is a troop. So a troop is the cavalry or scouts, what is a company or a battery. So it's that 4 platoons basically constitute a troop. The book focuses on squad, which is around 10 people, and how they maneuver, how they move in a combat organization. There are all kinds of Army training pamphlets, ATPs. There's all kinds of field manuals, FMs, that are available to you free of charge on the internet. You can go on and find out exactly all you need to know about the maneuver of a squad in a combat situation. For those of you who are going to be able to field a combat squad, a maneuverable combat squad, I'm going to say that is phenomenal, just phenomenal. In my group, I might have 2 people I could count on to be a maneuver element, not even a full team, because we're just old fogies. So we're going to pretty much be stagnant, and we're going to kind of be like the Alamo. You know, we're going to be Jim Bowie laying in bed with his blunderbuss. You know, that's we're old fogies. So we need some younger people. So if you're young and you want to move down here to Texas, come on and join us. But anyhow, that's what he's talking an awful lot about maneuver, how you maneuver out of an ambush, how you can anticipate an ambush. One of the things he gets into good detail in the book about is crossing a barrier. And so a stream, a river, a road, a highway can be a barrier. There's 2 trains of thought. I'm of the second train of thought. Okay. So the first train of thought is, remember that if you have a long road and you're over here and you want to get over here, that the enemy has a straight sight down that road. So all they have to do is set up a sniper or a machine gun down here, and you know, anybody that comes across, you're in their field of fire. Well, so the 2 thoughts are, you got to get to the other side. Thought number 1, send 1 person over, okay? And if that person makes it across safe, then you start sending more people over. The school of thought that I belong to is, okay, we observe, and then everybody rushes across at one time. Now, here's why I am of the second thought process. Kilo Foxtrot 5, Hotel Charlie Romeo. So you're in area 5. So I'm KJ5 HEF. We're pretty close there, Scott. KJ5 HEF. Let me write you down. Where do you normally operate? What band do you normally operate in, Scott? Okay, so anyhow, so my thought process is, the reason they didn't shoot that first guy that you sent across was they saw him. By the time they reacted to him, he's already across the road. But they're ready for the rest of you, because he kind of let them know there's people coming, right? So my thought process is, the advantage that that lone scout had when he crossed the road is what you want all your troops to have. So if everybody crosses at one time, by the time they realize that somebody's crossing the road and you're across, it's too late. So you don't have any warning. There's more people coming. Just everybody's across. So Lee's preference is everybody goes at once, and you know, we do that. Now, that's just my personal preference, but that's where it goes. Okay, so that's the end of basically his discussion on wartime skills for civilians. I think that's what he calls it. Armed combat in a war zone, or military skills for civilians. You know, light and noise discipline, going to be critical. Talking, using hand signals so that you aren't yelling and screaming at each other, and talking and giving your position away to the enemy so that they know where you are. Odor discipline is going to be very important too. One of the things we found out in Vietnam was we were really clean. And so, you know, and of course the Vietnamese used an awful lot of fish sauce. They also chewed goji berries, and so that those had distinctive odors, and so they could smell us miles away. If we were upwind from them, they knew we were there because of the odors. Because we shaved, because shaving cream and aftershave and soap and clean bodies and stuff. Maybe after we were out in the bush for a week or two, that not as noticeable, but still noticeable. And so you just have to GhostNet on 7107 Thursdays at 0100 Zulu. All right, let me get this written down. Thursday 0100 Zulu, and so it's going to be. Actually, 25 minus 7 is 18, so it's going to be about 6 o'clock. And 7.0, point. That's strange. Upper sideband on 7107 instead of lower? Okay. Well, thank you, Tammy, for saying that. It was our pleasure. I tell you, I would do it all over again. If it weren't for the fact they threatened me with Korea, another tour to Korea, I would have probably stayed for 30. But I had a brand new baby, and they wanted to send a Russian linguist to Korea, and there was no need for me in Korea. So, and the reason is because I had 21 years active duty and only one short tour, and so I needed to have another short tour. That's an unaccompanied tour where you're gone away from your family for a full year, and I brand new KF5HCR says digital. Okay. Gotcha. Okay, understand. Thank you. So anyhow, so that's what caused me to retire, was I didn't want to go to Korea again. But I loved what I did. Signals intelligence is just, there were times I would get phone calls. I'd be working on something and got some good stuff. And I get a phone call saying, "You coming home?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll be home in time for dinner." And he said, "Oh, no, you won't. That was 3 or 4 hours ago." And so when you get into it, you really get into it. And it's just so rewarding. You have a finished product something you did, and just it's such a rewarding career. Just loved it, absolutely loved it. And I tell you, I would strongly recommend anyone who is not sure what they want to do with their life, go into the military, free training. Just find a career. If you want to be a plumber, an electrician, a lineman, a power company lineman. I mean, just an engineer, a mechanic. There's so many career fields that are just phenomenal. Remember that 80% of the Army is combat support and combat service support. Only 20% is combat. So, and we consider combat arms, as being infantry, that's the guys on the ground with the rifle, artillery, that's the cannons, the howitzers, and tanks, armor. Those are our 3 combat arms branches. Everything else supports them. So combat support is things like air defense artillery. They're going to be out there. They're not going to be intended to fight the enemy head on. They're going to shoot down planes and stuff like that. Then you have combat service support, who are rear echelon guys like me. That's what they call us, rear echelon, but we're actually up with the combat units up front. But military intelligence, and then the military police and different things like that. So there are so many career fields. It's just phenomenal. Go in 4 years. This is all it costs you. 4 years. Learn a career field. Learn whether you want to be in that career field for the rest of your life. You can, and then if you want to change at the end of your first 4-year enlistment, re-enlist for another MOS. That's a military occupational specialty. It has a different training, so you can go to a different school. I started out as an Indonesian linguist. Then I became a code breaker in 98 Bravo. And then after that first 4-year enlistment, I said, "Hey, I want another language. Can you send me back to Monterey, California, to the Defense Language Institute, and give me a year's worth of basic Russian?" "Sure. And not only will we send you to language school to learn another language for a year, we'll pay you $10,000 bonus to do that." So, yeah, I mean, there's military is a fantastic career. Strongly recommend it. Let me see. So Shenanigans says, I was going to join the Army on my buddy system with my bestie. Then they told us we would be separated after boot camp. So I said, never mind. It depends upon your MOS. So, if you were going to be, let's say, in the medical field, and the other person was going to be in air traffic control, yes, then you would go to training for medical in San Antonio at Fort Sam Houston, and the air traffic controller would go to a school in Fort Rucker, Alabama. So yeah, you would be separated. My best friend, Scott, joined under the buddy program with another guy in our class, John Shook. And John became a Ranger. As a matter of fact, he retired. When he retired, he was the Command Sergeant Major for 2nd Battalion, 75th Rangers. But he went in buddy program with my best friend, Scott Mosier. And Scott went in to be an air traffic controller. And so they went in for basic training together at Fort Polk, Louisiana. And then John went off to Fort Benning, and Scott went off to Fort Rucker. Just the way it goes. I went off to Defense Language Institute, Monterey, California, first for 47 weeks of basic Indonesian language, then to Goodfellow Air Force Base, then to NSA, and then back to DLI for basic Russian, then to Goodfellow Air Force Base, then to Fort Riley, Kansas, then back for another year of Russian. So I had 2 years of Russian language in Monterey. And then from there, I went to Augsburg, Germany, and then back to Goodfellow, where I became a teacher. And then from Goodfellow, I went to Wobeck, a remote intercept site on the East-West German border, to Schneeberg on the West German Czech border, to Stuttgart, back to Augsburg, then to Stuttgart, and then to Fort Huachuca, where I taught the UMI Officer Advanced course, and then I retired out of there. So yeah, it was a good career. Okay, so remember, we'll all be here next week. No fiction book for this month, okay? And probably, I don't know if I'm going to have a pantry haul for next Saturday or not. I did attend an intergroup communications planning meeting with Bastrop Viking Preparedness. The leader there, Dwayne, did a superior job on this meeting. We got an awful lot accomplished. I think we've got at least 3, possibly 4 preparedness groups here in 3 different counties that are going to be interoperating with each other. I'm going to take all the notes from the meeting up to Bell County because I participate in Bell County preparedness, and share with them what we did down at Bastrop. And it looks like we're getting the Central Texas together. I would strongly recommend that you all do the thing down there as well, okay, where you're at. Not only how are you going to communicate inside your group, how are you going to communicate outside your group? So what that's done for us is now we have an evacuation to Bastrop if necessary. Bastrop has an evacuation up here into Williamson County if necessary. Then we're expanding that to Liberty Hill, to Leander, Cedar Park, hopefully Lampasas, Lomita, Belton, Temple. We want to get this a wide area so that we have several options of where we can bug out to if necessary. So with that, Book of Numbers, chapters 6, verses 24, 25, 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your phenomenal loyalty. I greatly appreciate it. Please don't forget, I am looking for people to help me. We're going to be doing, I've got 2 different decks. I've got 104 scenarios of conflicted, and we're getting groups together. I've got a couple of people who have said, yes, I want to do that, to come on. We'll do panels. We're going to take each one of these cards, probably over the course of maybe, and this will probably take us 2 or 4 years to go through all these cards, but maybe once every other week, have a group of people on. We'll go through one different scenario, and we'll have how will different people react to that. And then you'll be able to chime in and comments on what you think. Yeah, it's a good idea. No, that might be better thought out some other way. Okay. So look for that to happen probably in the new year. We should have it together by then. So remember to be kind, polite, and respectful to each other, because togetherness is how we're going to survive this thing. Okay. Take care, everybody. See you next Monday. Bye-bye.